Доброе утро, коллеги. Привет всем, кто смог встать, приехать в Лужники к 10 утра. Нас мало, но мы в тельняшках. Я надеюсь, что все остальные, кто не доехал пока, уже усиленно смотрят мое выступление, едя в метро или там, на такси. Сегодня вот о чем мы поговорим. Наверное, старость приходит, когда ты начинаешь переосмысливать свою жизнь и писать мемуары. До мемуаров я пока не дошел, но первый шажок в этом направлении делаю вот сегодня. У меня достаточно интересный такой карьерный маршрут получился. Я успел поработать и в регуляторе, я успел, в данный момент работаю в сервис-провайдере по ИБ, в интеграторе по ИБ и одновременно в заказчике по ИБ. Вот хочу с вами поделиться своими размышлениями на тему, какая разница в подходах в разных этих ипостасях. Давайте, чтобы я понимал немножечко, кто нас сегодня в зале смотрит.
See who is watching us, who is the audience, and I will be guided by you. Raise your hands, those who have an experience of working for regulators. I mean, the Bank of Russia, the Ministry of Digital, the FSB. Who is experiencing working for vendors in terms of information security? Who is working for integrators? Okay. Service providers?
О, отлично.
Sounds good. And all the rest are just the customers.
Ну, отлично.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great. I think that most of you
скажу, будет интересно и релевантно.
would be interested in what I'm going to say. So on that slide, that's the very idea of this slide, and I failed to shape it myself as far as I'm a fancy person. I resorted to the AI, and there will be a lot of AI cuts to make it funnier for you, so that you smile broader. End of the presentation, we'll ask questions, and I decided to
Что же это такое?
carry with me.
Скажу, это не лабуба.
And this is not a labuba.
За лучшие вопросы.
So that would be a souvenir for the best questions from our sponsors. So let's go.
Как вообще я сюда пришел? Вот как я докатился до такой жизни?
So how I ended up on that stage.
Не стал на слайд класть, но
I did not show my school, but actually there were some schools in my history. That's a matter for one big lecture, and for the next PhD I will tell you more about the kindergarten, the nursery, and my school. And we'll start my report starting from 2007. I was 17 years old, and I got enrolled to the Southeastern University, the Department of Comprehensive IT Protection. And this is where I started my journey towards the information security. Why information security?
достаточно силен. О, ничего себе, человек из моей команды.
Oh, that's a person from my team. Hi.
Я достаточно силен был в свое время в физике и математике.
I was quite strong in physics and mathematics, and my idea was to enter such a department where the entry exams supposed mathematics and physics that would be quite prestigious in terms of the entry threshold, and that there would be more girls on the course. And asked one of the professors who was working at the university where you can find more girls, and that's the information security department, and he cheated me.
Собственно, чего? Пришел я учиться. Надо сказать, ЮЗГУ, что это такое, вы спросите.
So, what USGO is about, and usually ask what it is about. This is the Southwestern University, and usually they would say, actually, is it in Dagestan? No, that's in Kursk. I'm from Kursk. It happens so that I got trained as a lawyer at the Civil Law Department of the Law Department. So my idea was that probably I would be working for FSB once I graduated from the university. But now, in 2012, I graduated, and FSB, as you see from this slide, is not part of my history, but I worked for FSTEC of Russia. I started my career as the chief specialist and expert. It was a kind of a guy from the countryside, but at the same time I studied at Baumansky University. I was the postgraduate student, and I didn't defend my thesis. So I didn't reflect that on the slide because it is not very relevant in terms of my experience. And I took a position of the main expert specialist in the Department for Cybersecurity, Information Security. And that was the Department of Certification of Information or Data Protection Department. And eventually, 6 months after I entered my very first position, so my boss was promoted, and there was a gap in terms of the management. And it happened so that I was one of the smartest persons in that department, and very quickly I became the acting director of that department. I was not endorsed soon to that position. There was a long way from the Department of Certification. I was moved to the department that was dealing with protection against unauthorized access. This is the second department of the second division. I was deputy head of the department, specializing in different unusual things. For instance, some request is submitted, you don't know what to do, and so the buck is passed over to Kubarev, so it means to me. It was 2017, and hence another strange thing that was submitted, how to enforce a new law on the protection of the critical infrastructure. We had to invent something, and a very law was passed, and we had to define who is going to enforce that as a regulator. We were supposed to draft and to develop main bylaws, and I was instructed to do that. In the course of addressing that objective, I actually set up the department, and I cherry-picked my team from the same university. The graduates of the IT infrastructure protection are very good in doing what they are doing. And the department with the red shield has a lot of graduates from that university, and was headhunting for them. And almost all the top managers of that organization are from Kursk. So I was running a department, and along with that department, we started enforcing the law. We have developed necessary regulations, and we realized that the field is huge, and one department alone would not be enough to run it. We had to expand. And a decision was taken in order to set up a standalone critical infrastructure protection department. I was appointed head of one of the department, controlling and overseeing everything. Then it happened so that I was appointed deputy head of the division, and I worked in that position until 2022. In 2022, in the middle of 22, I got dismissed, and then I opted for TI company, and was appointed the Information Security Director. So in that position, I'm subordinating to the Director General, but at the same time, I'm subordinated to the Product Director, because apart from the cloud infrastructure protection functions, I also have to expand the security services functionality. So it was also in my realm. And I'm still in that position. I'm T1 Cloud Information Security Director, and in February 2025, the top management decided that I'm doing my job very well, and something has to be done with that. And probably it's too rare that I'm leaving the office 10 o'clock in the evening, and added more functions to me. And so now I'm in charge of the information security in our integrator. So it means that I'm head of the T1 integration information security system. So Our company has about 27,000 people. We're united into one domain, which is called integration. So I am Information Security Director there. We are in charge of the security of the cloud technologies, and also we are providing for our own security, and also I'm in charge of the services and functions for our T1 integration integrator. This is how my position looks like now, and the picture would not be full if we miss the vendors. I've never worked for any vendors per se, but certainly I perform some vendor functions. At least I actually know at least something about that. And within a cloud, we actually can sell the alienated clouds. It's been packaged in the distributor, and it's been supplied to the customers. As far as there is an access to virtual systems, and if you certify that and if you deliver that in large scale, then everything would work much more efficiently. So it means that I'm a vendor in terms of information security of our distributor of the alienated cloud. So I'm in charge of that function as well. So let me start with the regulator. So look at more cats. That's a very serious-looking cat. So there is a number of stereotypes or myths, something that I'd like to dissipate. Many believe that all the regulators are very stringent, very strict, and are forbidding everything. They do not understand what they are running, what they are drafting, not loyal to anyone, not sympathizing with anyone. So they are just very hardcore, and they do not allow anything, and they create conditions to prevent any work, and they would make the requirements that you will never understand that language, and as if it is done on purpose. And bear in mind that I have such an opportunity to speak in front of such an august audience. Let me comment on that. So this is absolutely not true. It is much more difficult. Because regulators usually employed have the same people on the payroll, not just some aliens from another galaxy. So same human beings, the same brain, 2 hands, 2 legs, but they have different KPIs. Their mission is to keep balance between providing security. You have to set such requirements that would be followed, and once meeting those requirements, necessary level of cybersecurity would be provided. So it means that first, such requirements have to be feasible and executable at a reasonable cost, that they are universal and generally applicable, that the same requirements could be applied by SMEs that, for instance, would have some taxi fleet, and a huge corporation or a holding involved in the metalworks, ferrous metalworks. For every entity, you cannot make a tailored legislation, so you have to set the requirements the way that they're applicable to everyone. And the same level of cybersecurity is provided for everyone. So that's a big problem, how to come up with that. So it's not just like you actually write whatever you want and you release that. Now, it would require the work with the experts, a lot of processing, and before any requirement is set, you have to pilot that in order to understand that you can execute that yourself. Means that the requirements that have been set and that have been criticized, they are not sporadic, they are not accidental. No, it requires a lot of work, and it is time-tested and piloted with a confirmed result. Moreover, once we're looking at different requirements in order to understand what is written there, we cannot understand what it is about. This is not the regulator that does it, and FSB and other regulators have such a restriction, which is called the Ministry of Justice. Before, the requirement is registered, and in order to put that into force, that it becomes a law. It has to be scrutinized by the Ministry of Justice. And the Ministry of Justice has lawyers, not IT guys inside. And their mission is to put everything that we have written in the Russian language and in the language that complies with the actually legislative lingo. Bug bounty, that's a great word, and probably we could have put like that, but we cannot do that, and the lawyers have to come up with actually a strange structure, 3 lines long, which would mean bug bounty. So let me allow the responsibility that a standalone story, one of the main reasons why I quit working for the regulator. That was an imbalance between responsibility and the rate of compensation. I realized that any my mistake, just like any my fault, that would underlie the decision-making by the top management would immediately scale up to the federal level. So this is not something local. So immediately it would be upscaled to the federal level. So any my mistake in a letter or in a document, even if actually it is confidential or top secret, still references would be made to that. Therefore, you have to be very cautious, have to be very meticulous, letting no room for ambiguous interpretation or factual mistakes or errors, God forbid. Moreover, bear in mind that we're speaking about information security. We understand that once you make certain requirement from the stage where writing that in a letter, it would be immediately proliferated, and it would result in millions of rubles wasted down the sink, down the drain, in the best-case scenario. And in the worst-case scenario, it may result in an accident at some big factory because actually some message was not rendered to the control unit. And this is something that you bear in mind all the time. And you have butterflies all the times in your stomach, or you even have more gray hair. So I have a lot of gray hair. This is back from the first years of my working for the regulator. What else I may say? The regulator and the FSB and Bank of Russia. The same is true for Bank of Russia. They always are ready to communicate. So you can always call them and you say, I have certain doubts. And, for instance, would like to submit a proposition, and would you share your feedback? And when I was working for the Federal Service for Technical and Export Control, or FSTEC, it was working like that. And as far as actually the people who were working with me, they're still there. And they're still sticking to the same approach as far as I know. And I did that myself just last week. I visited the second department of FSTEC of the regulator having some questions. And they didn't actually say goodbye to me immediately, not because I'm Kubarev, because the people who are working there, they are ready to meet you halfway. Well, the hostages of the legal norms, I've told you, and no possibility to extend the staff. And, for instance, in commercial organizations, you have just to justify why you need more people in your staff. And in that case, for instance, in the worst-case scenario, some amendments have to be made in the Articles of Association. But working for the regulator, if you need 20 people more on your payroll, you have to make sure that either this is the presidential executive order has to be signed, or some governmental act has to be passed, and it would require some public discussions on a portal, and you have to agree that with dozens of agencies, including the Ministry of Finance, which actually never have money to earmark, but they're always on your side. And I remember that when we were setting up the 8th division, and it took about 9 months to generate that. So it means that you could incept a child and deliver a child within that period of time. So this is how long it took us in order to increase the number of personnel by 10% in order to set up that division. And then I moved to T1 Cloud, which provides cloud services, including security service. And I felt the difference.
Скажу так, мне хватало там приложения, ну, наверное, 40-60% усилий, которые я прилагал в FSTEC.
And 40 to 60% of efforts were enough in order to make my top management satisfied. And I got a lot of gratitude from them, and I got promoted, and suddenly the difference is enormous. It's much more interesting to work for the service provider. What the essence of service provider is about? First of all, you have to select the service that you will be able to sell. You have to pilot that. You have to understand how we are going to sell that as an information security service, how to put that on top of the model, how to verify that, how to distribute that to the customer, and what responsibilities you assume, what responsibilities are assumed by the vendor once this is a vendor product, what is the end user responsibility. You have to detailize that. You sign an agreement, you prepare promos. So there is a job to be done, but it's quite pleasant. So after working for the federal regulator, this is just like an easy walk. Sounds just like you see the butterflies flying around you and birds are singing and everything is easy. Then it is very important to sell that to ensure your economic feasibility and efficiency. If you do not generate revenue, so then the top management would come to you and ask, why we need you? I was lucky enough that, apart from that position, I was in charge of the information security of the cloud infrastructure that generates about 80% of the revenue for the company. And the top management realizes that once an incident occurs, if someone actually hacks our encryption key, then it means that we can call it a quit and go on working for Yandex Taxi. So that's great that my top management never had any questions regarding my position. And I didn't have to justify any single ruble that I was supposed to spend. So, and I said, I need this much money, and they will say, are you sure you cannot cut costs? And I say, no, and this is the amount that I get, until the moment when the key-base rate was raised to 21%. And it has become too difficult to get money for capital expenditures. Back to the economic efficiency, even bear in mind the key-base rate or policy rate to be raised to 27%. I heard one conversation between two top managers, not ours. What their margin is like that, and how much money they generate, this much, and how much money they spend, this much. Okay. Let them dismiss and the money that we planned for them, let us put on a deposit, and we will make money with the interest rate of 21%. So this is very economic efficient. Information security integrator. And I make reference to my experience into one integration. So it has become a little bit more difficult. So in a sense that there is an SLA in terms of money, in terms of selling the information security buys. And you see that's actually a cat which is selling some keys behind the counter. SLA on margins of sales, on information security, SLA on the scope of sales, and you have to provide for the necessary margin, for the necessary scope and volume. So it means that the margin has to be quite good, and you have to make sure that it is all sold or bought, that it has a competitive price in the market, that it is competitive in terms of the quality. at that minimum margin rate that you plan for, you have to provide for the necessary sales volumes, and at the same time, you do not have to overstretch. This is something that we're doing. We try to optimize something, cutting costs, and although we are technical guys, but we have to sell just like now sales assistants do, and I do think that my next presentation would be about the sales methods. I would be that internet guru, which is a much more relevant position. At the same time, you have to optimize your personnel and provide for the payback. Certainly, it is not desirable to pay extra, and you have to avoid the burnout for your staff. So this is what is required for working for the integrator. So why we are doing that and why the sales SLA is ours, is our responsibility? Well, usually regular SLAs and not the information security, they cannot sell that. They do not know who to offer that, how to enter that market. Therefore, unfortunately, we have to do that function, to perform that function. Well, hiring specialists, especially amid today's situation when the KPIs rate is 21%, is far from being easy. Not an easy work, and for instance, I've fully utilizing my team, and people have to work extra hours. I need more staff, and I would be responding. So the response is no. We can give you one person, and you have to provide a guarantee that this project would pay back within a year's time. So that's a very stringent corporate business. And balance between the maximum quality and minimum costs, I tried to convey that. First of all, you have to somehow keep your image so that no one says that Mr. Kubarev is a master of field products and is going crazy, and have to make sure that these products are popular and the price is quite competitive. As far as we're a big integrator, there are many organizations which are smaller, that are paying less to the specialists, that have less costs, and they can do that much less expensive. So I have to make sure that my product is bought, is demanded for, but at the same time that the quality is high. Information security vendor, you see such a very stylish and very fashionable cat drinking martinis all the time. So there are some nuances, and I run into that. Bear in mind the case that I have already outlined. First of all, you have to make the product work. This is very relevant, bearing in mind millions of products in Russia that do not work. And you have to go to the niche which guys were promising, but at the same time you have to make sure that it really works. And we also bear in mind that although we have isolated from the Western world, we're living in a silo, but still people are still alive who know how FortiGate is working or how Checkpoint is working. So they have not grown old, have not retired, and that means that you have to provide for the necessary quality of the product. At the same time, to make sure that it all works, you have to make the developers to follow the requirements of the Federal Service for Technical Control. If it is an operating system, they have to comply with that requirement. And for instance, the alienated cloud has to meet the requirements to the virtualization means. This is how our dialogue with the developers look like. I say, here are the requirements, and provide me the list of the amendments included into the roadmap. And they return and say, we didn't understand anything. And you try to explain in plain language of Virgin Mary what is there. And again, the blame should not be put on the federal regulator. This is how they have to formulate those requirements. Second objective is to get included into the register of the Russian software. If it is a hardware, then it means that you also have to be included in the register of radio electronic equipment. Not always this is easy, especially if your product is 99.99% open source and if your equipment is made in Taiwan and assembled there. So this is not a piece of cake, but nevertheless you have to make sure that it is done. And at the same time you have to certify your product while it is still relevant. So my comment is certifying the product from the regulator would take about 1 year, including the tests, including the expert review and the procedures in the regulator. We understand there might be some extra iterations if the certification agents will lab or the federal regulator has certain requirements, more requirements.
There can be a lot of these stages. So if you do certification, then you should take at least 1 year, or maybe it will take even 3 years. Get ready to this. If you develop the product without compliance to the certain class. And how do you maintain the product during its life cycle? It's also quite a challenge. Particularly, we remember that everybody is desperate to buy local products, and they bought a lot of products now, and they don't work. And they go to technical support, and technical support is suffering. They have no time to sleep. They are handling this, and I guess they're just taking a swim in coffee in order to survive. So, on the one hand, it's great, but on the other hand, it's not that good. So, this is what my work looks like. This is what a consumer of information security services looks like when one of our employees from IT or from accountancy opens yet another phishing email, and I tell him that he shouldn't have done that. Don't be scared. I'm your friend. Just follow my instructions. So, in case if SLA is about revenue, if it's the federal scale, then it's more down to the ground. Just make sure there is no incident, follow the rules of the regulator, and don't hinder the business activity. I guess this is one of the key requirements. What is this about? Information security requirements should not increase time to market, for instance. Information security should not force general manager to take 5 stages of authentication to get access to a certain resource he needs. Information security should not stand in the way of developers, software developers, or those who exploit software. And also it should be done for free, of course, free of charge. It can be paid for. And naturally, you should do it alone. Just one employee is enough. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but it's quite similar. And this situation is quite prevalent in the cloud. In my company, it's not this way. In T1 cloud, it's different. But many other companies are actually dealing with this. It's quite stressful. Yesterday we discussed it. Alexei Lukatsky did a session, and Vladimir Bengin kept on offering to relax and to drink some booze. We never know when attack will happen. I'm currently on stage. My cell phone is off, but what if my cell phone doesn't work anymore? What if it's been hacked? I always keep it in mind that I may go to bed and maybe I will not have enough time to sleep, and somebody will wake me up and say that the system has crashed, we're under attack. We're always ready to an attack, but it doesn't take long for an attack to happen. Scanning ports, we should do it on a weekly basis. It's not even an incident anymore. DDoS attacks, well, all right. We are a large provider and we're attacked every now and then. I guess we can print out the schedule of these attacks and put it on the wall. I'm not even surprised about DDoS attacks anymore. It all is done on a legacy software, and it was developed ages ago. Of course, you should not change it. It's like the rusty nail in an old car. If you take it all out, then the car will just collapse. And it's very dangerous. Any Windows 2005 server, in case if you want to update it to a more recent version, then this update will result in a crash. Our SLA is 9999, but in case if it crashes at least for 1 minute, then there will be questions to the one who's responsible. Also, there was a fun story. How can I tell you the story without calling names? I'll take some time to think. If I come up with a way to tell you the story without calling names, I will let you know. And all the guys in the market, they keep on robbing you. They make attempts at least. And they're saying, here is a great tool, and we wrapped it into carbon. It's so great and nice looking, and really want to use it. And nice girls are advertising this. Of course, you want to buy it, but you don't have money. Let me remind you. And all vendors are in this situation. There are a lot of conferences, a lot of events, a lot of coffee breaks and nice food and receptions, cocktail receptions. But once again, we have no money, we have no budget for it. At the same time, you are always experiencing resistance, particularly from IT. IT says no. Why so? Just because we will have to create a password with 2 extra symbols, and it's very much trouble for us, or we will need to use second-factor authentication. It's another it's yet another certification, and it will make us less efficient by 0.0000003%. And everybody rolls their eyes and says, oh, information security again, they're so annoying. But in T1 Cloud, we have built the relationship in a nice way. My initiatives get supported even by IT, and regular users in IT they're not cursing me, they're even smiling to me, and they're even eager to greet me when I'm there. I tried to systematize it and put it into a table. I split it by levels of complexity. So this is what the picture looks like. Here are the indicators. In terms of indicators, I'm taking here budget, team, well, budget, clear, how much, what's the budget for the function team? It ensures freedom to choose whatever head count you want, and that's it, I guess. Competencies is the degree of competencies and how talented are those people from the market that you can hire. But there are nuances here. Regulator is ranking number 4 in terms of competences because maybe they don't have an opportunity to pay salaries to talented people from the market. Let me reveal a secret. They don't have these salaries. They cannot pay as much as people usually get. But those who work there, they're really competent and they're really talented, and they can attend conferences, and they always can get trained, and they regularly take trainings in Positive, for instance. Thank you very much to Positive for helping regulators and for training people. Regulatory pressure is yet another indicator. In case if something happens, then you will get a penalty, and you will also go to prison using the corresponding article. Attractiveness for cybercriminals. Whether cybercriminals are ready to hack you. Of course, hackers are interested in hacking Ministry of Digital Development, and some neighborhood store is not that interesting to them, obviously.
оценил. Масштаб
So I'm rating here
ответственности. Мы про это
responsibility
поговорили.
scale.
Регулятор — это федеральный
A
масштаб.
regulator is federal level of responsibility. Security service provider is responsible for itself only and for its customers. Integrator is responsible for its customers only. Vendor is responsible for its customers and consumers of the product and for itself as well. And consumers is responsible for himself only. And the degree to which you can plan, like you get a task and you were in the middle of leaving your work desk, it's 8 p.m. already and you get a call, it's very urgent, deadline 8 a.m. tomorrow. 8 a.m. tomorrow. So, let me draw conclusions. Regulators are very much struggling. They're in Spartan conditions. Consumer is doing a little bit better, but not that comfortable. Information security integrator, information security vendor, they are feeling quite comfortable, and the best comfortability is CCAS provider. Please take it into account when you're building your career. Let me sum it up. Here is an orchestra on the picture. The regulator is a conductor, and different cats are playing their instruments, the instruments that they have, vendors, integrators, consumers, CCAS providers. They're trying to play one tune together, but it's actually not working. It doesn't sound nice, but the further we go, the better it sounds. Of course, goals of different stakeholders are different, but the complexity is the same. And each participant of this orchestra must play its role, and the quality of their role determines the whole tune, so to speak, the whole story. So that's all that I have. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, a round of applause is in order. Thank you very much. So we have 9 minutes for questions. Let me remind you, 2 gifts for the best questions. Good morning. My name is Mikhail. I am an employee of a vendor, and I have a question. Thinking about your experience in the regulator, it's quite strange to hear that you send the requirements to the developer the way it's written in stack. Ours are usually getting shocked about this. They have a special analyst who decomposes it for them. They prioritize it together, and then they start working on this. And once again, you have an experience to work in regulator. Haven't you tried to synchronize the work with the lab and certifying bodies so that software developers have the same artifacts that can be given for verification right away? It's in order not to make certification process too lengthy, which is 3 years currently. It could be possible in just 1 quarter, because the method of certification that they have now is, so to speak, stillborn. It's super outdated. It's not viable. When they certify the products, they are not relevant anymore. Okay, question number 1. Let me answer. When we get requirements right away, this was my first approach to this exercise. Some time ago, I was writing those requirements, and when I was writing them myself, I thought that this is very simple, straightforward, so easy. So I made a mistake of someone who has some background. But then, when I'm on the other side, I realized that it was very wrong. We made a decision that we need a project manager, competent person, a professional. We also need some people who could decompose it into a task tracker and to get it up and running. This was my first approach, and this was my big mistake, and I realized it quite soon. And the second question is about synchronizing software development and test labs. I was hinting about one specific laboratory. All right. Let me answer this way. The idea is promising. In my case, I have only one product, it's protected cloud, and that will not have huge inflow, and it will not be modified too often. I will have a look at this idea. Thank you very much for this, but I think it's not very feasible. I think we will continue doing it the old way. In iterations with the lab. But given my experience in STEC, I guided the lab right away. I said, guys, you will do not only test is what you will do, but I'm sure that you will have to upgrade the product quite a lot, and you will be an intermediary between the regulators and software developers. So technical requirements development will be on your end. This is how we decided to organize this because I don't have resources for that, so I delegated it. Then, okay, let me clarify. You certified once, and you struggled a lot. It took 3 years to certify, and there is no plan to change the product significantly. But what if you need to introduce a new patch there? And then you need to go through inspection control, and it takes 3 more years. Within the same track, once we started cooperating with the laboratory, we authorized them to audit development and to bring safe development in line, secure development in line with the standards. These tracks are not complete yet, they have just started. Thank you. I don't even know. All right, go ahead. Good afternoon. I am here on behalf of, well, I can't say competitor, but data center as well. And my question is the following. How did you manage to get from the stage of menagerie of different softwares, user-gate, continents, WAF, and different other animals, DDoS. How did you make sure that they work together? Because it's a nightmare, particularly taking into account that you work with continent. It's double nightmare. And I have experience obtaining license with different laboratories, and maybe it's thanks to you, but it's much easier to work with it now rather than in previous years. So just in case, please pass my gratitude to them. Okay, thank you. I will pass it. It's important where you're asking questions. Of course, there are different institutions, and they have different managers, and different managers have different approaches. What I was talking about is my previous managers, Lutikov Alexander Sergeyevich, Shevtsov Dmitry Nikolaevich and his team, Tarbenko Yelena Borisovna, Zenkin Pavel Sergeyevich, and other leadership. These guys, they answer questions, and they are quite humane. About making things work right, I'm a manager. I have a great team of great architects. I have a team of great engineers. I instructed them, please make sure that things work great, and the deadline is the day after tomorrow. So they got organized somehow, they got aligned using their peculiar language, and different audits and different inspections, pin tests, etc. They demonstrate that I think they have done a great job. Oftentimes they swear when they hear the word user-gate. When they hear continent, then their hands start shivering. VIPnet, they're also getting very emotional. But it's working fine, and somehow they survive. So let me sum up my answer. How did I manage to make it work right? I hired a great team. I managed to explain to them how important it is. I managed to create comfortable environment so they don't have to get distracted to other things. They're not engaged in bureaucracy. They're not distracted by that. So they do what they like. They do their exact work. They do experiments. And it seems that they're doing it well and they're not willing to leave the company. So briefly, it's the team. It's thanks to the team. Thank you. We have time for one more question. Thank you. My question is the following. Since I have an opportunity to ask an insider, so to speak, a regulator insider, usually this orchestra is moving in a way that the regulator is a conductor and different organizations start playing. I'm a system integrator. I'm looking at how customers respond to this. And one slight movement, and you must understand what he means by this slight movement. So we have to guess. It's a lot of guesswork of what the trajectory is and what the regulator actually means. It has been mentioned that there is a better communication with the regulator. Communication is possible, at least. Does the regulator collect any feedback, first of all? Is there any opportunity to give our feedback to them? And second, what is the right platform to learn the right clarifications? People do not always have a chance to come offline. It's a good question. If you open the website FSTEC of Russia, I'm sure that you're there all the time, you will find a tab with contact details. You can find their contact details, phone numbers, and their real people will answer your phone call, so you can agree on a meeting with them. Or you can ask your questions. Of course, sometimes they will not be eager to schedule a meeting with you, so please specify your questions, explain why it is important, so that they make a decision that the meeting is really important and we cannot solve it by phone or by email. This is the first case. Second case, we have email. Please make a phone call and say, I have a great suggestion. Please pay attention to it. I can send it as a document. Please have a look at my suggestion. Or please have a look at my questions and what is not clear to me. Most welcome. It really works. All right. What else? Round, or we're done, or what else? Could you please pass the microphone to the lady in the fourth row? She's wearing an orange T-shirt. What's your name? Olga? Olga, where are you from? Solar company. I guess you can guess by the color. What's the best question, Olga? The first one. Oh, great. And what's the quality of the second question? It was good as well. But I liked the first question. I have two gifts. This is why I need to know the first and the second question. But it was one person. No. Yes. All right. I mean the first person and the second person asking questions. Okay, the first and the second people asking questions, please approach me. I will give you your gifts. Thank you very much.